Alright, so um alright, so tables are not, again, they're not the best way to create a layout if you're trying to lay out your website and make it responsive, but they are good for showing a bunch of data. And in order to make your tables look a little bit nicer, you can style it with CSS, add some padding, as you can see here. Right, if I take away all my CSS, you'll see table looks very ugly, and I could disable the CSS just by commenting it out real quick. And yeah, it looks terrible. But um, let's change the color of the borders to black again. So there's the borders on the actual cells, and then border collapse right here. We enable that, it closes the gaps, right? Because I have rounded corners, you get this little shape in there, and if I make the color of the border white, it just looks like gaps between the cells. Okay. I'll make sure to go over this effect that you see here, to hover. But before I do, I think this needs a little bit of padding on the left side, of course. It's not good to have your text right up against the edge. Just general design rule. You don't want the text touching the edges. So, let's see, why is it touching the edge? We have padding on table data. So, what's causing this to stick to the left? Padding 20 pixels. Did I add padding left somewhere? No, I did not. So what's up with this? Image column, I see. Yeah, I made the image, the whole column padding 0. That's what I did. Um, shouldn't have done that to the whole image column. I just should have just done. Actually, no, that's. Sorry, that's fine. This is gonna be replaced by an image, so that was intentional. Um, right, because we got the Ferrari there, and then I was gonna put another car here, another car image, so that part we can ignore. Right here, just to fill it in, I will fill up the whole first row with an image, or a first column, I mean. So row 3, what is it? Okay, so we got table row. Here's another table row. So here's the image column. I'll just copy paste this here image and put that image in here. There we go. And put this one here. There we go. Okay, so that's why there's 0 padding there. I didn't want padding on there because I want the image to stretch all the way to the edge, but it looks kind of weird when the image is has these sharp corners but the cells don't. So I'll add the same border radius to the cell, or I can add another CSS property. So even though this image is inside this table cell and this table cell has rounded corners, uh, the part of the image that doesn't fit within those borders and the rounded corners, it still shows, so it sticks out. So your options are either round the corners of the image or set the overflow of the cell to hidden. Okay, so there's a property called overflow that you can apply to any container that says, okay, if whatever's inside doesn't fit inside, just crop it off. So we could crop off those corners. So I gotta add to the table data, well, specifically the image column. We can add overflow hidden. You can see now it cropped it off. No more sharp corners. Um, Speaking of overflow, that's also what I'm going to use to maybe get this table to scroll horizontally, but not the rest of the page. So the way you can do that is put the whole table inside some sort of container. So here we have the table. I don't know if I have to put it all in a container or if I can give the table itself like a width. Probably not. I don't think giving the table a width would be the best way to do this. Said width 100 VW, which is viewport width or the width of your uh, window here. And overflow. Let's try hidden first, and I'll show you auto. Oh, looks like that doesn't work. So yeah, I didn't think it would work. On the table, can't set the, well, you should be able to. Let me try 100%. Yeah, it doesn't work either. Might be because table is not display block. So let's set it to display block. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, so now that the table is set to display block, I can give it a width. I'm not sure what the default for a table is. I don't think it's inline. It's got like a, I think it's display table. It must be, yeah. Anyways, I switched it to display block because when you don't have it to display block, you can't really give it a width for some reason. So 100% or 100 VH or sorry, VW. VH is height, VW is viewport width. So you can see now I still have a little bit of a scroll bar. So sometimes I can do like a width instead of 100 VW, maybe make it like 99 or 98, whatever gets rid of that horizontal scroll bar. So it's gone. And part of the table is now cut off unless I make the window bigger. Right? But we don't get the horizontal scroll bar really. And I still get a little bit if I make it really small, but just a little bit. So there's no way to see the rest of the table. And that's with this overflow hidden. So just like I'm able to hide the corners with overflow hidden, I can also hide what doesn't fit within the table. Remember, I'm setting the table's width to the width of the window, so if the cells inside the table don't fit inside that, they're just going to be hidden. But there's another one here. Instead of saying hidden, we can say auto. And what that does is gives us a little scroll bar, but it lets us scroll just the table and not like the rest of the page, right? I'm gonna do something a little bit. So instead of width 98 VW, since I'm still getting a little bit of a little scroll bar, I really don't want to see it. Even when I make it small like this, it's still there, and the reason is because 98%, I guess. I don't know what it's counting, but to get rid of it, we gotta use like a fixed pixel amount, not a percentage. So what you could do is you could say calc. And this is kind of a, I don't know if this is a newer CSS feature, but this is called a function. So it's kind of weird. CSS, I never think of it as a programming language, but it does contain functions, just like in other programming languages. And this is a built-in function that's gonna calculate something for you. So you calculate by writing calc, and then you could say 100 VH or VW minus, like, let's say 5 pixels. So now instead of 99%, it's going to be 100% minus 5 pixels. So it's always going to be like 5 pixels less than the total width instead of a percentage, right? Instead of 1% or 2%, it's 5 pixels. I guess that wasn't enough, so let's try 10 pixels. There we go. So now, even if I make it super small, I don't have that second scroll bar down there, which is not good for user experience, I think. So now it's just the table's own scroll bar. So you could, explore the rest of the page without having like a big empty area on the right side because of the table. So if you haven't done this to your table yet, go ahead and try it. Right, and in the meantime, I'll try to illustrate what I just talked about here. So we have containers in HTML, and you can put stuff in a container. Let me grab a picture to throw in here. Can I paste it like this? No, I didn't think so. Copy, paste. No, it doesn't work that way. Right, reveal in Explorer. Drag it in there. Okay, so when you have content, doesn't matter if it's an image or another element or text. You put it in. Everything goes inside some sort of container, right? The parent container for everything is the HTML element, or maybe the body element for all the stuff that you can see. So if you put something in a container that is 100 pixels by 100 pixels, let's say, but whatever you put in that container is like 300 pixels wide, and you try to put it inside, what happens is it just overflows by default. It'll just ignore that container. So if this is the container, and it's bigger than the container that you put it inside of, it'll flow out. Adding overflow hidden in the CSS will basically hide what doesn't fit. So it's like creating a clipping mask. So overflow hidden will hide the rest that doesn't fit. Okay. Overflow auto will give you a horizontal or vertical scroll bar, or both, if you need both. In this case, this image is taller and wider than my container. So you would get a horizontal and vertical scroll bar for this. By the way, you could also say overflow, more specifically, instead of overflow auto, you could say overflow scroll. But I don't recommend putting scroll. When you put overflow scroll, the scroll bar is there all the time, even if you don't need it. So it's better to put auto because then it's only there if you need it. Anyway, so this gives you scroll bars so that you can scroll the image to see the rest of it. Oops. Anyways, you get the idea. So not only does it give you the scroll bars, it also hides the rest of it. So it's kind of like hidden plus scroll bars. And that's what I did here. Made the table have a width of the window, and if the cells don't fit inside that width of the table, you get a scroll bar. I would get a vertical scroll bar only if it didn't fit the height. So if we change the height of the table to, let's say, 100 pixels, now you could see obviously 100 pixels is not much, so the cells don't fit in there, but we have this vertical scroll bar now. We could scroll through. And if I go like this, then I have both scroll bars. But just for the table and not the rest of the website. And don't forget, table, if you want to give it a width, you're gonna have to change the display property to block. Alternative is leave the display property alone on the table, and all this stuff, the width, calculate, and overflow auto, you put that on some sort of parent container. But this seems like a longer process. So we would create like a div. Div is an element that you're going to use often. It's just a container. It's a block level container, kind of like a span is for text. A div is for everything else. So it's just a box, and we're going to put the table inside of it. And then we go here. Oops, not here. We go here. We say div. We paste in the width and the overflow. So now the table is inside this. So it should pretty much work exactly the same. And it does. So it's not the table that has a width, it's the container of the table. And it's not the cells that we're scrolling, it's the whole table itself within this other container. So it's kind of the same thing, but we're using another container. So we have an extra element. Probably better to do it the other way, since you don't need an extra element. Right, we have this extra div container. So you do it that way. Right, any questions? Nope. I want to give you guys like 5 minutes to try to absorb some of this information. Try the overflow and overflow hidden and overflow auto. Create a table real quick, see if you could do that. And I'll pause recording. Okay, so let's talk about this real quick. The hover effect. So this is called a pseudo, what is it, pseudo selector or pseudo class? I forget. But there's others besides hover. Pseudo selector or pseudo class. Let's see. Yeah, so syntax of a pseudo class, it's the selector. So in this case we have, where did I add? Yeah, we on the table data and the table header. That's the selector. So TD is the selector, and then the pseudo class followed by colon, and you have your regular open and close curly bracket and your CSS properties. So the hover lets you change the CSS while your mouse is hovering over something. So the background color of these table datas is this brown color, but whenever I hover over it, changes to this light brown color. Or let me make it white. Or no, that's not gonna be a good idea. Let's make it, I don't know, purple. Right, so brown, purple for when you hover over it. So there are other pseudo selectors or pseudo classes, and we have the pseudo classes for links. If you've never visited a link, you can set the color. If you've visited a link, you can set the color for that. You have your mouse over or your hover, and your active. So active is if you're actively clicking on something. So while your mouse is pressed down on something. So if I change these to, instead of hover, change them to active and save that. And now the color only changes when I click on a box. So that's active. Although for this, I think probably makes more sense to leave it on hover. I think that's it though. Hover. Oh, sorry, no, it's not it. We have, of course, the first child selector or the nth child selector. There's gotta be more. They're all pseudo classes. So active, checked for checkboxes. We have another one called check. We have disabled. This is if an element is like an input is disabled, because you can set inputs to be disabled, so someone can't type into a text input, for example, or disable a checkbox. And you would add a disabled attribute to disable one of those. Empty selects every p element that has no children. P empty. I haven't used that one, but I guess you could select whatever is empty. Not sure why you would need to. Maybe if you're programmatically with JavaScript or something trying to insert text into paragraphs that are empty. Enabled, so opposite of disabled, and then you have first child for the first child of a parent. First of type, focus, hover. Focus is another good one I use sometimes when I'm creating like a drop down menu and I don't want to use JavaScript, you could use focus, although there's some limitations to it. Focus is basically whatever you have highlighted or whatever you've tabbed to. Like, for example, you see the black circle around or the black highlight on the word enabled. That's what do you call it? That's in focus. So when I press tab, I'm focusing on different elements. Last child, link, not, nth child, nth last child. There's a lot, but you probably won't use all of these. What you will use most often is maybe first child or hover. Um, and nth child. Uh, nth child is useful if you don't feel like assigning a class to every element somewhere. You just want to select an element based on which child of the parent it is. Like, for example, well, like these table datas, they're all children of the table row. So nth child 1 or first child is this table header. Nth dash child 2 would be this one. Nth child 3 would be this one. So in case you wanted to make this a different color or style it differently, normally you would have to give it some sort of class name so you could target it differently. But if you use the nth child selector, that's another way to do it. But I think we should talk about classes and IDs first before really trying to use nth child. Okay, so I think that's the next thing we should talk about. So HTML classes and IDs. Right, so ideal situation where you would need to use a class, say you have multiple paragraphs. Anyways, you have multiple paragraphs, but maybe they're all maybe you have like a question and answer section. Okay, that's probably a situation where you might style them differently, right? Maybe you have a QA section on your web page and your questions might be in bold. Why does Myriad Pro not have bold? Anyway, so maybe you have a QA section and you have paragraphs for your questions and answers. But you want your answers to be not bold and your questions to be bold. Right, and maybe further you wanna I don't know, maybe you wanna indent the answers or something. Maybe you wanna change the color. Right, maybe this is your FAQs. So if they're all paragraphs, then how are you gonna style them differently, right? And that's where classes come in. So imagine these are all paragraphs. So that's a paragraph. 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 So how do you style all of these differently? Or how do you style all these the same and all these the same? You give them a class. You classify them. So classes, very important in CSS and HTML. The way you write a class is use the class attribute. So p class equals, and then you give it whatever name you want. So the rules for naming your classes, I know you can't use spaces, that's for sure. Don't put spaces because you can also assign multiple classes to something. So, for example, this paragraph, maybe you assign it a class of, I don't know, question, but you also assign it a class of, I don't know, bold or something, right? This basically means this paragraph has a class of question and it also has a class of bold. So no spaces, because spaces just means these are two different classes that you're assigning to this paragraph. So use underscores or dashes, both are fine, or use camel case, although I think the convention is to use dashes, like QA question, or FAQ Q. And then the other one might have FAQ answer, or just answer and question, or Q and A. I mean, you could name it whatever you want, okay? So classes can be named whatever, except can't have spaces. Not sure about starting with a number and all that. I mean, never tried. I'm pretty sure you can't do that. I mean, let's try it. Um, I'll do a new document just so we stop messing with this one. And create a new. Make sure it's not in the images folder. Index 2. Actually, let's call it the FAQ.html since I mentioned it. So say there's a FAQ page. Call it FAQ, the title. So I'll just create a few paragraphs. I'll create one paragraph here and put some lorem 10 in there. And put a question mark at the end. And put another paragraph and just put lorem 20 in that one. Right, so this could be the question and this could be the answer. let's put that inside a div. Let's start getting used to creating containers. It's really useful because you get to organize everything and move it around together. And why is this not? I don't know why it's not indenting properly. Prettier. Did I disable prettier? No, it's there. Anyways. Oh, that's why. There are multiple formatters for HTML. One of them should be configured as default. Okay. Let's configure prettier. There we go. So if your prettier is not fixing things for you, you probably have the same issue. Command Shift P to bring up this search bar and then look for format document or type it in there. Click on it, and then when it says you need to configure a default formatter, click configure, and then just out of the multiple that show up here, select prettier. I don't even know what this one does. HTML language features. It's like auto installed, but I'm used to prettier, so I'll stick with that. Right, so I've got this div that's containing 2 paragraphs so far. Let's put a title in there. Give it a H2 FAQ. Still not. That's annoying. I don't know why it's not staying. Configure default formatter. Maybe I have to do this through my settings. Editor default formatter. There it is. Okay. I guess I have to choose that there and save that. Just to test it out. Yep, it works. Yeah, okay, so you have the same issue where it's not formatting. Your prettier is not doing its job. Remember, that's why we install this thing, so it makes your code look nicer. It's not doing anything every time you try to format, or if you set it to format on save and you're saving and nothing's getting formatted, try going into the preferences and settings and then search for default formatter, and then in that list look for prettier and just choose that as the default. Alright, enough distractions. So I've got this and a couple paragraphs. Let's see what it looks like. Alright, so we have FAQ and 2 paragraphs. But we're gonna have a few more paragraphs. But before I copy these paragraphs, let's give them the class names. So for this one, I'm gonna say class equals Q. And for this one, I'm gonna say class equals A. Maybe that's a little short. Let's just go with question. and answer. Nothing changes if you just give something a class name. Of course, that's not doing anything. But now we have uh, another selector to use besides the element selector. So far in the CSS, I've been using the element selector. Right, so if I want to format paragraphs, I would use the P selector, and that would change all paragraphs. Right, color red, let's say. But what if you don't want to change all paragraphs to red, or you just want to change the questions or the answers? So that's where the class comes in. Okay, so now instead of using the selector, the element, we can use the class name. And to use the class name, you have to put a dot in front of it. So if the class name is question, then you put dot question. And then you could say color red. So now only the first one, which has a class of question, is going to turn red. And I think I mentioned specificity before. You could also be more specific and not just say anything with the class of question, make it red. You could say only paragraphs with the class of question, make them red. Because you can also have, like this H2 could have a class of question as well. You can assign multiple elements, different elements, the same class. And if I say question red, then FAQ is red, so is the paragraph. But if I say P dot question, then only the paragraph. So I'm just being more specific here. I'm saying paragraph with the class of question. It's important you don't put a space in front of this, by the way. If you put a space, that basically means whatever has a class of question inside a paragraph, which we don't have anything like that here. Normally your paragraphs don't contain really other, actually they do. You could have spans and strong and italic or I tags inside your paragraphs. So if you had a span with a class of question, then let's say we have a span here. Let's put this consecutor inside the span and give that span class equals question. And now that turns red, right? Because it's a span, so it's an element with the class of question inside a paragraph. So element with the class of question inside a paragraph. But if you say P dot question, then you're talking about that whole paragraph with the class of question. Does that make sense? Anyway, so it matters if you have a space there, if you don't have a space there. Or if you just don't put it at all. I'm just going to get rid of the question class on the H2 because that doesn't make sense. Anyways, now I could, since I put the class names here, question and answer, let's get rid of this span also. Wait, let's just get rid of the span. There we go. Question, answer, I'll just copy paste it a few times. Right, so now if we had a FAQ section and we want to style our paragraphs a certain way, we could have our questions maybe not red, but well, let's see what other color would look nice. Some sort of dark color, like a dark blue. And we also want to change the font weight to bold. And maybe you want to change the font itself. Font family. And then for your answers, dot answer. Okay. Let's just change the font family. And give it maybe a padding left 20 pixels, like a little indent. Right, so you have your question and your answer. So that's what classes do. So you assign a class with the class attribute, and you target a class with we'll call this question and answer. And in the CSS, you would select it with a dot. Oops. Okay, any questions on that? On classes? Alright, so now let's talk about something very similar to classes, but different, which is IDs. So an ID, pretty much the same, except you say ID equals, and instead of a period, put a hashtag. Or number symbol, whatever you call that, pound sign. Anyways, instead of a period, it uses that, and instead of class equals, it's ID equals. But one important difference between IDs and classes is the way you're supposed to use them. Although you could use them the same way. Remember how I put the same class on multiple elements? Like I have class equals question here, I have class equals question here, and here. So I'm using it on multiple elements, the same class. With IDs, you're supposed to use them only on a single element. So you can't be using it on every paragraph like I did here. Instead, maybe you might, if you needed an ID here, I'd say ID equals, well, I don't know how it would make sense to use an ID on a question. I wouldn't use it on one of the questions because there's multiple questions. I'll put it on a unique element. For example, the the title FAQs. You're not gonna have multiple FAQ titles, so you might put the ID on that. Let's look at our table example. No idea where you would put it here. I don't see a reason to. Anyway, it's a unique identifier, okay? So with classes, any element can have the same class name. Any number element can have the same class name, and with IDs must be unique. Only one element should have a particular ID. Okay, so classes, you can put the same class all over the place. ID, just put it on one single element because you're supposed to use it as a unique identifier. Make sense? So if this had an ID equals, maybe this has a page title ID, right? Page title. You're only gonna have one page title on the page, so you would say hashtag page title. Maybe you want to add some let's see, letter spacing. Let's set it to like 2em. What would that do? Yeah, that just spreads the letters way apart. Let's go 1.3. Yeah, it's still a lot. Okay, I guess we have to use like, I guess 1em is a whole letter width, so you probably want to do like 0.5. 0.1 might be like the default. Nope, not even. The default is even less than 0.1, so letter spacing of 0.1 is already gonna spread it beyond the normal letter spacing. Let's just go with 0.5. Looks cool. And this whole font family is repeating. Right? Instead of repeating the font family, since I want it on everything, I'll probably just put it on the body. Then the children will inherit. So putting styles on a parent element, such as the body, like the font family, you assign it to the body, then all of these will have the same font that you gave the body. Because they are children of it, they inherit from it. Okay. And since we're on this topic, remember I said sometimes if you don't feel like adding class names to stuff, like I added all these class equals question, class equals answer. Say I didn't have these. And since we're talking about pseudo classes, such as hover and nth child, we could use the nth child to do the same thing without using the classes. It's just a little weirder to do it. So instead of all the questions being font weight bold and the blue color, we could say paragraph colon nth dash child. Let's see. So the paragraphs are all. So the first child is the H2, second child is this question, third child is this, fourth child is another question, fifth child is this answer. The longer ones are answers, the shorter ones are questions. But notice how all of my questions are even number child. So that's child 1, child 2 question. Child 3 is an answer, child 4 question. So basically you can use paragraph nth child even, and you can make all the even children that color. And you could do the same with answer. Instead of answer, you could say paragraph colon nth child odd and have those indented. Right, so that's the nth dash child pseudo selector, which was mentioned. Where did it go? There it is. Nth child. So you could either put a number in there, or you could put even or odd. You could do a lot more actually. Say, like when I chose even, I'm doing all the even numbers, but I could do just like the fourth or whatever number I pick. Let's say the fourth one. Then only the fourth child here. So there's child 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fourth one is gonna be that color. You could also say what else could we do? Anyways, there's other ways to use it. I forget. Like every other odd number you could do, like, but I wish there was an example here so I remember. It's like I forget. Anyways, forget about it. Okay, so nth child lets you select a specific child of a parent. So notice, even though I'm saying p nth child, it doesn't mean it has to be the, like, if this was 4, it doesn't mean it has to be the fourth paragraph. It means it has to be the fourth child of that whatever parent it's in, and it has to be a paragraph. So we're counting the FAQ H2 here because it's also a child of, they're all children of this div here. This is the first child, this is the second one. So Just because there's a P in front of it doesn't mean you're not counting the H2. Anyways, break time. That's all for today. For you guys. After break, JavaScript. Alright, let me remember what we did last week. Uh, Objects and arrays. Wait, why is the FAQ here? This was what we worked on? Oh yeah, I wanted you to create a table and insert um, information from an object that you created into the table cells.
David,
Yeah.
can I ask a quick one? So I was trying to figure out how to, I don't know how to replace the image there because, yeah, I just don't know.
These images?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll go over it. So, I created for the images, I have a table data with a class equals image URL. So that table data also has an image tag in it. So did you remember to put the image tag in there? If you have the HTML set up like this, um, then the issue is gonna be in the JavaScript. So the reason why we have this is so that we can use the query selector, or we could use get elements by class name, and then grab the element with the class of image URL, which is this and whatever other table row you have with that class, and that has an image tag inside. So what we want to do is with JavaScript, we want to add source equals and then uh, the name of the image that we're trying to link. So if it's
So the command is in JavaScript
yeah, so basically with JavaScript, we want to add this source equals plus the image name. So
because I'm more used to putting it like inline. Like I know that I can do it there, but I was trying to figure out how to replace the to change the image.
yeah, no, this is basic. This is just with basic HTML. You can just put it in there. But we want to learn how to do this with JavaScript. How to actually add a source attribute and then set the value to something. So the way we do that, what I just showed you, this will be added with JavaScript here. So first we need to grab that um, table data, right? So we have let car1 image URL equal document.query selector, and we use our query selector get car1 and get the image URL in there. So car1 is the ID. So we're grabbing whatever has an ID of car1. Remember, query selector is just like any CSS selector. An ID with a space and another selector here being a class selector. This means any class of image URL inside the ID of car1. So class of image URL inside ID of car1. So it's basically targeting this right here with this little bit of code.
So like let's say I added a photo inside the folder where those cars are. How do you do that? Like I add images on that folder, images.
Yeah, so step one is to get the element that you're gonna put the image in, and this is step one. So getting the element that we need to put the picture inside of. Okay, so this is the element table data. once we get that table data, then we can say our car1 image URL dot query selector. So if you do a query selector again inside this that we already got, so that's the table data. So we're doing a query selector on the table data, and this time we're looking for the image tag. We're saying query selector image tag. So now we're looking inside this for an image tag, and there it is. And once we have that image tag, we're using the dot set attribute method. This is a built-in function that lets you set an attribute. So remember, attributes, source is an attribute, href attribute. So we're setting the attribute, the source attribute, to car1.image URL. And car1.image URL, we set it here when we created an object called car1, and we set the car1.image URL to images forward slash wrangler.avif. So now it's taking this and it's setting a source attribute and setting that source attribute equal to this. So it's setting, again, first it finds this, then we do a query selector to find the image, then we set the source attribute on the image equal to whatever car1.image URL is, and car1.image URL is this. So this is all happening behind the scenes with the JavaScript. It's doing this for us. We'll practice a little bit more. Um, let's try a different, more simple version. Let's do what do we have? What's this one? This one's empty. Okay, let's add like a title at the top, like an H2 or something that says um, new cars to buy or something. Right, so whatever that title is going to be, let's go to our JavaScript. And I'll go down to the bottom. Or let's do it in the same order that we have our HTML. I'll put it up here at the top. I'll say let page title. Right, call it whatever you want. I'm going to just say page title. I'm going to set it equal to top 5 new cars to consider buying. Or how about since we have Civic and Wrangler in there, top 5, what do you call it? Cars that cars that keep their value. I'm sure there's a better title for that. With best resale value. That's probably a better title. Alright, so I want to put this somewhere in the page. Uh, we could do it all with JavaScript, but let me break it down and just do some of it with plain HTML. So at the very top, above the table, I'll create an let's make it an H1. And we want to put this text inside this h1. So this is a little bit more simple than what we did with the image URL because we're not setting any attributes. We're just setting the inner HTML. But we still need to do the first step, which is similar to what we did here. Instead of getting uh, the table data, which is the image URL class inside the table or the row with the car1, right? It was table row with car1, and then this is a table data. Instead of doing two query selectors, or yeah, we did two query selectors. First we got this, then we got this. We just need to get this by itself. So we can do query selector or get element by tag name. Two options to select an element. Say let h1 element equal document dot and we gotta use query selector because if I do get elements by class name, it's gonna get multiple elements. It's gonna return some sort of a collection. I don't want that, so I'll just use query selector. And we just want to get the h1. So h1 element, query selector, h1. And all we have to do is h1 element dot inner HTML or inner text, both of these will work, equals page title. So that should add the h1 up there. Top 5 cars with best resale value. Oops, there we go. So hopefully that's easier to understand, right? What I just did there. So these are JavaScript specific things, being able to manipulate your HTML. Can't really do this with other programming languages. Just JavaScript lets you interact with HTML and CSS. It's got these built-in functions like a query selector to actually get the element, and then properties like inner text, which you can set equal to whatever variables you have. Now, if you want to see how we set the attribute on the image, we could set the attributes on this as well. Maybe we want to center it or something. Right? Let me zoom to 100%. So let's practice setting another attribute. You could also, there's two ways to do this. I showed you both ways before already, so this will be review again. If we want to set the text align property in CSS to center, we can say h1 element dot style dot text align. And remember, instead of using text dash align like you would normally in CSS, we switch to camel case just because the minus in JavaScript means something. It can't be part of a variable name like this. So it's style dot text align equals center, and you see that centers the text. But if you want to do it more similar to how we did the image source, we set the attribute source to car2.image URL. We can do that instead of using style dot, we could say h1 element dot set attribute, and then set the style attribute, because that's how you add inline CSS. Set that to text dash align center, and that also centers it. All right, questions? Oh, okay. We can continue adding other um, CSS to this. Remember, we're setting the style attribute. So this is kind of like saying for the h1 style equals text align center, right? But maybe I want to add some padding as well. So normally you would put a space here and say padding 20 pixels. Why isn't it getting any padding? I wonder. Padding 20 pixels. Padding 0. Why isn't it updating? No, it is there. Text line center. Wait, where's the padding? That's weird. Do I have to refresh? Oh, you know what's happening is yeah, it's because we're doing it with JavaScript too. So I put text line center padding 20 pixels, but the JavaScript is just setting it back to just text line center. So first the page loads with the regular CSS that I defined here, but then the JavaScript takes over and it sets the attribute style to this, which basically it overwrites it to text align center instead of text align center padding 20 pixels. Anyway, so but if you want to add padding 20 pixels with the JavaScript as well in inline CSS, you would do it this way: just a space after the semicolon and the next CSS property and whatever value it's going to be. Well, in JavaScript it's the same. Just when you're setting the attribute style to text align center, you have the semicolon. You could just add also padding 20 pixels there, and there you can see it added the 20 pixel padding. Right, let me add another image just to show you how to change the image again, but a little more simple because this won't be inside the table. Maybe maybe we have another image here. So I'm gonna put an image tag. Oh, sorry, wrong place. I put an image tag here after the h1. Right now there's no picture in there, so you don't see anything. But let's put, I don't know, best resale value cars. Actually, I was gonna put a big picture of a car up there, like the featured car for best resale value. But why don't we put like let's go to Pexels stock image site and just find money. Uh, 1920 ought to be good. Now I'll put that in our folder here. Uh, Oops, wrong button. That one. Okay, so we've got this picture. I'll use that as the image source for this image that I just added below the H1. And I'll do it with JavaScript. So with this, to make it easier to select this specific image, I'll give it a class name. I'll say, or actually let's give it an ID. ID equals featured image. Okay, so now we'll just use document.getElement by ID featured image. That will get us this, and then we'll just set the attribute source equal to this picture. Right, so that's what I'm gonna do right now. Um, so let's say let featured image equal document dot get element by ID featured image, and then featured image dot set attribute to dot forward slash. We need to get this picture here. Let me rename it to something easy like money.jpg. So I need to get money.jpg, but I'm in the JavaScript script file. So if yours was not working, this might be another reason. Maybe you're not putting the correct path to the image. It's a little bit tricky because I'm in the script file, and I want to actually, I don't know if it matters if I'm in the script file or if I have to navigate from the HTML file, since this is being imported into the HTML file. So I don't know if we start here from the HTML or do we start here. Anyways, let's try starting from here, the script tag. That means to set the attribute to this picture, money.jpg, I first have to get out of the JavaScript folder because that's where the script file is. So to get out of a folder, it's dot dot forward slash. And then to go into the images folder, it's images, and then forward slash money.jpg. Yeah, and unfortunately it doesn't auto complete it for you like it would if I was doing it here, like where's the image tag? If I said source equals, if I put dot forward slash, it auto completes for me, but it just doesn't do that in the JavaScript unless you install some sort of plugin to do it, maybe. But anyways, I'm putting dot dot forward slash to get out of the JavaScript folder, and then go into the images folder and then get money.jpg. But let me see if that works. I don't think it worked. What happened here? Everything collapsed. Wait, this is the wrong file. Open. Uh, Hold on, what happened here. Strange. Let's turn that off for a second. Oh, yeah, that's causing it somehow. Well, I think maybe I'm breaking the code. Let's check. So to check if you have any errors in your JavaScript, just right click and inspect in your browser. Click on console, and there you go. Set attribute on element. Two arguments required but only one present. What did I do wrong? Something basic. Oh, I forgot to put set attribute source. You gotta set which attribute you're changing. You're changing the source attribute, so you have to add that there. Change the source attribute to this. I forgot to put that in there. There we go. So it added the image. Of course, it comes in full size. We gotta deal with that now. So we can do featured image dot set attribute again, and this time set the style attribute, and we can set the height to, let's say, 200 pixels. You can see here, so I did featured image dot set attribute source, set it to the picture. Then I did featured image dot set attribute style. So now I'm changing the CSS, giving it a height of 200 pixels. So you can use set attribute to set any attribute. I'm gonna actually set the width to 100%, and then I'm gonna set the height as well. So semicolon height. Let's set that to 250 pixels. It's gonna stretch the image, of course. I'm gonna set another attribute, the what do you call it, object fit to cover, and then that'll crop off what doesn't fit. Cool. And then if you want to center the whole table, there's the table. It's just the only table tag we have there, so we could use the query selector, or you could give it an ID if you want to select it that way. Call it ID car table. And then we can say I don't already have a selector for the table, right? So I'm gonna say let table, or let car table equal document dot get element by ID car table, and then car table dot style dot margin equals auto. Something broke. Let's see. Uncaught reference auto is not defined. Oops. This is a string. And that centers the table. So obviously the point of this is not to style your um, HTML with JavaScript. The point is to know how to manipulate attributes and styles with JavaScript if you ever need to. Okay. Obviously, it's easier to just write the CSS directly in your CSS file, but we're doing this just to learn how to uh, get the elements that we need and to change their attributes and styles. All right, enough of that. Let's go back to basic JavaScript and programming lessons here. We talked about objects. Okay, so hopefully you're understanding objects a little bit better. Get more practice with them. But I think we need to talk about conditional statements, so if statements. I think that's what comes up next in our notes. Alright, so we're talking about objects. Again, you define them with curly brackets. How we defined um, which one did we use with the curly brackets? Car2. So car2 is an object, right? This is the object. It's within the curly brackets. It's got object keys and values. So key value pairs. And these are called the properties of car2. So image URL is a property of car2, make, model, year, color. They're properties of this object. Okay, they're called properties, but if they were functions, they would be called methods. So if they had something like honk, oops, and honk was a function, then this would be considered an object method. So these are object properties because they're just simply some strings, string values and number values, and an array value. But if it's something that does something, it's a function, then you call it an object method. I wonder if I can call it here. If we go to console and we say car2 dot honk, honk. Yeah, it gives us the function. If we want to call it car2 dot honk with parentheses. So without the parentheses, it's just returning the function itself, telling us there's this function. If you say car2.honk with the parentheses, then it executes that function. So then it alerts beep beep. There you go, beep beep. Got an alert. We'll talk about functions more soon, maybe today, but you definitely need to talk about them. But again, function is just like a set of instructions that you can call anytime, and they're defined with the function keyword, parentheses that can contain any arguments that you might want to pass into it, like car sound, whatever the car sound is, and then instead of alerting beep beep, you could alert This wouldn't be in. This would be one word. Car sound. Probably camel case. And then you could alert the car sound. That's why there's these parentheses. So in case you want to put something inside. You don't have to, but if you wanted to pass additional data into the function, you can. So, well, now I have to. So if I go to do the same thing I just did, which was car2 dot honk, and I call it, see, nothing happens. It just says undefined because car sound is not defined. It still does the alert, but doesn't know what to say because I never defined what car sound should be. You define it here by passing it into here. Honk, honk, beep, beep. So now car sound equals this basically. But it gives you more. It lets you customize what the function does basically by passing in something in there, right? Set that back to beep beep. But I think pretty sure conditionals was next. No, after objects. Oh no, it's array methods. I should have done it the other way. I feel like we should talk about conditional statements before all the other stuff because they're sort of equal. So I'm gonna skip to this and then we'll go back to the other stuff. So conditional statement is a set of rules performed if a certain condition is met. The condition evaluates to a Boolean value, true or false. So you say if this and this, then do this. Okay. So you're either gonna get true or false for that if statement. And if it's true, it'll execute the following code. If it's false, it won't. Or you could you could put an else statement. You could say else in case the if is false. Then it'll do something else. And we gotta use comparison operators in this most likely. Equal to, equal value, and equal type. You already seen how those work, right? When you put two equal signs between two objects, two variables, it compares them. So if 5 is equal to 5, so 5 equal 5, you get true. 5 equal 6, you'll get false. And then this one checks if it's also the same data type. So because you could have 5 that's a number and 5 that's in quotes. This will give them true, this will make it false because they're not the same type. Exclamation and an equal means not equal. Exclamation and two equal signs means not equal value or equal type. So it's like the opposite of this and opposite of that. You have your greater than and less than and greater than or equal and less than or equal. So these comparisons will give you true or false. And then the if statement looks like this. You write if, and then inside parentheses you have some sort of condition, like if a is equal to 5, then it'll do whatever you put here. If it's false, then it won't do this. You could use else though. If age is greater than 21, you could alert something. If that's false, so if age is less than 21, it's not going to do this. You could add an else statement to say something else. Anyways, let's practice this that I just showed you. So what can we add here with the if statement? I guess I'll do it in a separate file. Let's leave this one alone. So I'm just gonna create a new conditionals.html exclamation tab. Turn on word wrap. Any questions, by the way? Oh, wait, I'm not looking at the chat. Oh, never mind. Okay, so no questions? Let's do a condition here. Actually, we don't need this. We could just do it right here in the console. So just open a browser window, right click inspect, open your console, and type a equal, well, let's say let a equal 5, and then check if a is equal to 5. You get true. And check if a is equal to 6. You get false. Check if a is equal to 5 in quotes. You get true. Check if a is equal to 5 in quotes again, but with the, sorry, do 3 equal signs this time. You'll get false. So just to, quickly review comparisons. You could also check if a is not equal to 5, you get false because a really is equal to 5. Remember I said let a equals 5. So if I check if a is not equal to 5, I get false. I get a is not equal to 5 in quotes, I get true because it's not the same. This one is a string. A is actually a number, so with the double equals, you're checking the same type as well. So an if statement works like this. Let's say let, well, how can we do this so that it executes in the browser? Let a equal 5 if a is equal to 5, alert yes is equal. Alright, so we get this. As soon as I execute that, it says yes, it is equal, spelled equal wrong. But if a is not equal to 5, nothing happens when I press enter, because this evaluated to false, so nothing happens. If it's um, if it's true, I get the alert. We could also add an else. So this is how you write an if-else statement. If parentheses condition curly brackets um, statement to execute if this is true. Else, alert, no, it is not equal. Right, so we're getting yes, it is equal because a is equal to 5. But if I check if it's 6, then we get no, it is not equal. So it's executing this one. This is really, really basic programming, so should be something everyone really understands well, because in every programming language you have this. Might look a little bit different. Also, even in JavaScript, you might see it a little bit different. Um, Sometimes it's written on a single line without the curly brackets. You refresh the page. So let a equals 5 again. Get rid of this error. And we can say if, still need the parentheses. If a is equal to 5, alert, yes. Now we still get the alert. So you could get rid of the parentheses and put it on one line. That would also work. But you cannot do that. Wait, you can. Sorry, I just forgot that. Okay, you can also do that. So you can do your if-else statement without the parentheses, without the curly brackets. Put it all on one line. So you might see it like that. But the normal, original way to do it is with the curly brackets. And you could have multiple conditions. You can say if a is equal to 6, or, and the or in JavaScript is weird. It's these two, what do you call this? Pipes? Pipe. It's the shift backslash button. That means or in JavaScript. So if a is equal to 6 or a is equal to 5, alert yes, else alert no. So we're gonna get yes because a is not equal to 6, but it is equal to 5, and we're checking if it's either this or this, and it is this one, so we get yes. So this value is to true. But you could also say and. So and in JavaScript is not and, it's two of these ampersands. And obviously this is going to be false because, of course, a is not equal to two different numbers at the same time. So that evaluates to false. Oh, and of course we have the greater than or equal. But I'm sure everyone knows how that would work. So if a is greater than 6, alert yes, else alert no. A is 5, so we get no. 5 is less than 6, not greater. If a is greater than 5, we still get false. Still get no, because 5 is not greater than 5. 5 is greater than or equal to 5. That will give us true. Questions, questions. No questions. Okay, it's all pretty basic. Oh yeah, there's also else if. So if the first condition is not true, you can check else if. So let's start writing this in the HTML file here. Let's create something. Let's pretend. Let's make a door here. I'm gonna create a div. And let's style this. Style. Give this div a class equals door. And let's say door. Let's give it an ID door. It's gonna be the only door we have. So ID door. Let's say width of 200 pixels and a height of 600 pixels. Give it a background color of I don't know, just some gray color, hashtag 555. How about 556 with a hint of blue in there? Or how about 657? A little bit of wait, no, sorry. 567. A little bit of green, a little bit of blue, not so much red. That gives us this. Wait, that's way too narrow. Come back here. Alright, I thought that would be more door-like. Make that 300. Okay. How is this 300 by 600? Huh, I guess it is. Um, Actually, let's do create another div here. Give this an ID equals club. And this will be the container for the door. Say height. Oops. Display flex maybe or grid. I just want to center the door, so line item center. Justify content center. Where did it go? Oh, I forgot to put that inside. There we go. Okay, so the door is now centered on the page. All right. um, but above the door, why is there? Okay, above the door, we'll put an H3. Says enter. I'm gonna have to change the flex direction to column. Okay, so we make that an H1, so it's a little bit bigger. Oh, and make that a button, not an H1. Let's make that a button so we could click on it, and it says enter. I will style that button with padding 10 pixels, 30 pixels, background color, and margin 5 pixels, and font size 2em. Alright, so we have a button. Let's make it look more like a button with button hover, background color, and cursor equals pointer, so we get a pointer when we hover over it. Alright, so I'm creating a button here and a door, pretending this is some sort of a club that you're trying to get into. And we're going to check how old you are to enter the club. We use conditional statement. We're going to ask some questions, and if you pass the questions, you can enter. If not, you don't enter. Right? So let's go back to the HTML here and start adding some script. I'll just put all the script in here for this one. I won't put it in a separate file. Okay. So first we need to do something when someone clicks this button. We need to try to get in when we click the button. That's when basically once someone clicks the button, the questions will start coming. Right? Now, we haven't talked about functions too much yet, but we do need a function for this. That's the only way to fire a set of executions when you click or on command, basically. When you want to do stuff, when a certain action is performed, then you need to have those that stuff that you want to do. You want to put it in a function so you can call it whenever. Okay. So far, the way we've been programming is um, what do you call it? There's a word for it. It's not object-oriented programming. It's object-oriented versus. It's called procedural or maybe functional. I'm pretty sure it's procedural. So basically, you're just executing things in order, like you're doing this and then you're doing that, right? You're not really your code's not dynamic. It's not prepared to execute a function anytime on command. So we need to create a function for this. Okay, so a function is created again. We'll talk more about it, but with the function keyword is one way to do it. You have to give it a name. So function try to enter. All right, so we have a function try to enter, and what it's gonna do is it's going to prompt you for some questions. So prompt is kind of like alert, except you get that same little box, except it also gives you a little place to type. So if say prompt, let's just keep it really simple here. So well, let me do a here prompt, and I refresh the page. Oh wait, sorry, I'm in the wrong file here. Oops. This is the other one. Go back. Don't save. We're on this one. Oops. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this prompt pops up and it lets you type something and then press OK or cancel. Whenever you do type something, let me look at the console while I do this. So let's refresh the page so the prompt pops up again. I'm just gonna say hello. You could also type it in here. Prompt hello. You can see here it says hello. So whatever my prompt, whatever I type into it, gets returned. And if I press cancel, it just says null. If I don't type anything, it just gives me empty quotes. But basically, whatever the prompt, whatever you type into it, you could save it in a variable. So I could say let age equal prompt. How old are or what's your age? Right. So um, so your prompt can also have a question in it. Well, normally it will. So if I say prompt what's your name, I press enter, here it says what's your name, and I'll say David. So let age equal prompt what's your age. Let's stick to that for now and let's see how we could call this function. So there's a couple ways to do it. The button that I added, this button here, we could give it an on click attribute, and when we click on it we could call this function just by typing the name of the function, try to enter. Right. So if I click on it, oh, don't forget the parentheses. If I click on it, the prompt pops up. Every time I click here, it asks what's your age. And then basically I could type in a number here. Um, and then if I inspect here, oops, I gotta do it, I guess. Let's say 5, and type in age. Uh, oh, sorry, that's in the function. Okay, so we gotta do it this way. So there's something called function scope. When I set the age to 5 or whatever, it that age variable, this says let age equal prompt. That only exists in this function. So it only exists within these curly brackets. Uh, that's why we can't reference it outside of the function. When I try to just reference it like usual, it doesn't let me. So what you need to do is declare age outside of the function. So say let age, and then in the function, basically set the value of age to whatever you want. That way, it's defined outside the function, and then you're just changing the value of it in the function, so you can still reference it. And so that's called the function scope. Hopefully now if I go to the console and type age, yeah, we get 5. So now it knows what I'm talking about. So basically we could have a function that asks a set of questions and have some variables here defined outside of the function to store our values for the question. Like maybe we have maybe to practice arrays a little bit, you could have an array like let guest list equal an array, and maybe um, Elon is on the guest list, and Al and Don and Maria and Jesse. Right, so maybe we have a guest list, and one of the questions here is what's your name? So name equals um, prompt are you on the guest list? Well, let's just ask what's your name. What's your name? So now there's two prompts inside the function. So once I answer the first question, it's going to ask me the second question. Right? So it brought up two prompts, one after the other, and I'm storing these variables here. So if I go here and inspect, if I type age and name, they're stored. So we can do something with those. Although the name shouldn't have worked, it only worked because I never refreshed my page. I didn't, I only have let age defined outside. I never defined name. So the only reason that worked is because earlier I typed in name in here. I said let name. So that's why the name variable exists. But if I refresh, wait, why is it still there? Did I define it somewhere else? Or it's just not clearing the, Yeah, I didn't really write name anywhere else. I don't know why it's not refreshing. Clear, refresh, refresh, refresh. Name. That's weird. It's like saving my information. Let me clear. So empty cache and hard reload. That ought to clear everything. Name. It's still there. Makes no sense. Age is undefined. Name is David. That must mean I put name equals David somewhere, but I don't think so. It's just saving it. Let's try closing this and opening it again. Inspect. Console. Name. Yeah, there we go. So now it's empty. Also strange, if I didn't define name outside of the function, but I still assigned it like this, it kind of treats it like I'm saying var name equals. And with var, the rules are not the same as with let. It's like it lets you define it, but if I say let name, I think now I'll get an error. Not sure. Name. Oh, it's still okay. I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. Anyways, you should define name out here too. Let name, and then redefine it in here. I don't know where it's getting the name property from. Okay. Anyways, once we get the information, then we can alert whether you can get in or not, or like open the door or something. Maybe change the color of the door to show that it's open. Maybe make this red at first, and then if you're allowed to go in, it turns green.
David,
Yeah.
um, what will you do to restrict only on those names that you put on the guest list? Like if you type your name, it shouldn't let you in, right? Because it's now on the guest list. So what would you put there to do that?
I was gonna get to it. Let's see. Um, so following this function, or yeah, following this inside the function, maybe we should check after all this. Say if age is less than 21 and name. Oh, and here's where some built-in array methods comes in. So maybe I shouldn't have skipped the array lesson. So now we have to check if something exists in this array. So the way you do that is with one of these built-in array methods right here. So arrays have functions that you can call on them, such as pop to remove the last element of an array, push to add something to the end of the array. You could have find, returns the value of the first element in an array that passes the test in a testing function. Um, Probably you have to use find for this. We could also do find index. I guess just those two. So either find or find index we'll use uh, to find the element. And so if age is less than 21 and um, how would we do this? Guest list dot find. So it gives you hints here. Find predicate value. Um, what happened to my? Oh, missing a closing curly bracket. Let me just try alert on guest list. Actually, I'm gonna remove the age. Let's just test this one for now. I don't know if it's like, I think it's a little bit more complicated than just simply find and then name. But let's try it out. Age doesn't matter. Let's say my name is Elon. We didn't get an alert, so it didn't find anything. So that didn't work. Um, JavaScript find. Proper way to use it. You need to pass in a function. So name is equal to, oh, we can't say name and name. I'll say guest name. Guest name is equal to name. So basically now it has to, you have to pass in a condition in there. So you also need a placeholder for whatever name you're trying to find in there. So basically guest name is going to be each of these names. It's going to go through and look at each name, and it's going to compare that guest name to name that we set. And if it finds it, it's going to return true. If not, it's going to get false. What happened to my door? There it is. Okay, so Elon. Oh, Elon. Nope, that didn't work. I think we also have to return this, because otherwise it's not returning anything. So it's not returning true or false. Okay, now it worked. So on guest list. How about if we tried Bob? Nothing happens. Or we could put an else here. Else alert not on guest list Beat it. Okay, so you could do find or find index. Find index will return either a positive number if it finds the index, or it'll give you a negative number if it doesn't find it, so it's kind of the same thing. Right? On guest list, you may enter. If I say 21 and Bob. Wait a minute. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, so find index let you in if your name is not on the guest list. Let's see if it does it again. Bob. Yeah, okay. And oops. Alert. Not on guest list. Beat it. Uh okay, so if you did use find index, you would have to check if guest list dot find index uh is greater than 0, I think. Then you could use find index. Not on guest list. Beat it. Okay, yeah, there you go. Oh wait, no. Okay. Don't use find index. It's not working. Just use find. Okay. You could use find index, just need to figure out what it's returning first. Because find index gives you the index. So if you say find index of Elon, it'll give you 0, which might evaluate it to false. So yeah, it's not a good idea to use find index. Because zeros and ones can also mean true and false, and even though Elon is on the guest list, its index is 0, so it's technically false. That's why it's not working. But find will just return true or false. Okay. Oh, it's 9:48, so we'll continue tomorrow. If you guys want, maybe I should send you the file. I'll upload some notes today if you want to look at them. But that's it for today. Any questions? If not, let me stop the recording.